are going to start painting our sunflowers. So everybody is going to get a vase of sunflowers at their table, just a little arrangement of sunflowers for you to look at to see how some of the different colors are working together and some of the green leafy elements that are in there. Now you'll notice in the palette today, we do not have green. We will add green at the end, but you have lots of different shades and tints and mixtures of golds, oranges, yellows, and then we have our brown for the centers. So we will start with our brown centers, and you want to try to paint as many sunflowers as you can see from your point of view. So those sunflowers are going to be in the center of our paint cup. Now your paint, I guess not a cup, but more like a palette, is pretty much split in half. So if you have this brown center towards you, you're going to see that you have about 6 colors to choose from. So it goes from this light orange color all the way through to a brighter orange. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then the other half of the table, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I am going to set this aside. I'll put this beside me. I'm going to move my sunflowers out of view so you can see my palette. But you can see this is a painting that I started to work on. I did not quite finish it. And you can see I started with the brown centers first, and then I painted my petals around the brown centers. So that's how I am going to start mine. So I am going to look at my vase, which is over here, and I'm going to paint those brown centers where I see them. Now with the brown centers, we paint kind of in a circle, and then after you paint your circle, we go up and down on top with our brush to give it more of a fuzzy texture. So this is called dabbing with our brush. So an up and down motion to give it a little bit more of that fuzzy texture that we see inside of the flowers. So I'm going to go ahead and continue painting some more brown centers of my flowers. So now that I'm done with the brown centers, instead of washing my brush out in a water cup, I'm just going to clean it by rubbing it gently back and forth on my placemat until most of that brown is off and my brush still looks okay. It might still have a little brown on it, so you might have to roll it on your placemat. Whatever you need to do to gently clean it. Doesn't have to be perfectly clean. So just make sure it's nice and clean as you can get it gently. We're not using water because if it's too watery, the flowers become very transparent or see-through. So now you see I've put all of my brown centers on based on what I was looking at on my vase, which is hard for me to show you through the camera. But what you're going to do from here is add your petals. Now I had a flower here that I couldn't see the brown center, so I might still add some petals from that flower even though we don't see the brown centers. Now this brown little twig thing, remember any leaves, those I'm going to leave for last. So now that I have the brown centers, I am ready to work on my petals. So I'm going to go ahead and choose some colors. This flower down here towards the bottom is kind of like this dark gold color that has some lighter areas and a little bit of orange. Feel free to use multiple colors for a petal. What you don't want to do is have one petal that's this color, one petal that's this color, one petal that's this color, all growing on the same flower. That doesn't make sense. Notice how there's different colors of flowers, but all of the flower petals are similar for that flower. So keep that in mind when you are painting your flowers. So to paint this flower, I'm going to start with this gold color, and I am going to paint from the center, from that brown, and I am going to pretend like this is a pencil. So I'm going to draw with my brush a kind of like a teardrop or raindrop shape. So I started wider and I'm curving down, starting wider, curving down to make a point. You want your flower petals to come to a point on the ends. Now I'm going to fill the middle. nice, long, neat brush strokes. It's okay if you're going over the brown. We're actually going to touch up our brown at the very end. So I'm going to go around and paint all of the petals for this flower. Notice that my petals are all going to be touching. They're going to be close together, and they all are going to have a nice pointed tip. So now that I've done this first layer on my sunflower, I'm going to go back in with a second color. So I need to clean off my brush. Notice how this overlaps over my vase, just like you would see it in real life. So now I'm going to go in and add some of the dark kind of shadows that I see that are making some of these lines in the petals and that are close to the center. So for this part, I'm just using the very tip of my brush and I'm letting this kind of mix in with the color while it's still wet. So now that I'm happy with this flower, I'm going to move on to a second flower. So I'm going to clean off my brush. Now your goal for the first day is to get about 2 to 3 flowers done. You want to have about 5 or 6 flowers total for your vase. You don't want too many, but at the same time, you don't want barely any at all. Your flower should be taking up this whole big top space of your painting. So if you made your brown centers really tiny, you might need to think about making them bigger. It should make sense for the size vase that you made. So I'm going to pick another area to start painting another flower, and I think I might actually start to work on this one here. Now because I painted this flower, I'm going to tuck some of these petals behind as if this flower is behind the one that I already painted. So you're going to see I'm not going to paint every petal on this flower. So now that I have my base color for my orange sunflower, I'm going to go in with a second color. This time I'm just going to add some darker lines right close to the brown. Hey, if you still have more time in class, you could work on a third sunflower. Maybe you don't get 2 sunflowers done. Just do your best, but the point is take your time. This should not be fast. No one should be finished with their sunflowers in one class time. So remember, you should have at least 2 colors for each of your flowers, but make sure your petals all look similar for that flower. So different flowers can be different colors. Feel free to pick and choose which colors you'd like to use out of the palette. So next week, I will continue to work on my other flowers and then adding in some details of the twig and some green leafy areas too.